Beyond that, when it comes to R&D and dealing with local paradigms rather than foreign ones, how have we fared?
Okay, so I'll say that's a developing area. And in the Act, there are provisions for that form of collaboration.
At 1038.
At 1038, there are provisions for that. But yes, it's a developing area. The Act is huge. There are a lot of sections to it. But the provisions we have there, which we have started working on, is really around the engagement with the educational institutions. So for example, when you talk about the development of curriculum that is taught in the universities, what are we teaching? Are they abreast with what's happening in the industry? So that's where the authority comes in. Again, if you look at it also from the perspective of people that are actually even doing research in their area, they are doing their PhD or their masters, and they need data. So we spoke about our points of contact collecting real data. So that's Ghanaian data. It's not something we have imported from anywhere. So the authority is able to support with such research projects, even help you to select a topic that is relevant to our jurisdiction, as it were. So that's how we have it. But going to the future, that interaction or those collaborations are going to be strengthened further. There are opportunities where there would be a proper R&D function within the authority to help these kind of initiatives.
What then would you say, as far as your work is concerned, we can also look at the licensing processes. As far as Ghanaian institutions or organizations are concerned. What are the risks? How are you enabling them, the GTECs and the others? How are you helping them?
Okay. So I can start from one of the key elements within the Act, which talks about critical information infrastructure. So basically, critical information infrastructure, or CII for short, refers to any infrastructure whose distraction or disruption would result in a national security problem or a disruption to a socio-economic state of the people, right? So we have 13 sectors that the Act has identified, and among them is what we have. We have health, we have education. Now, that structure means there's a specific focus on what those sectors do in terms of how they secure themselves, how do they build their infrastructure, how do they protect it. So I'm happy NIA they are among the advanced entities that are following that. But then we are trying to drive it into all those 13 sectors. And one of the initial things we've done is to develop what we call a directive, a CII directive. Basically, that document contains baseline best practices that would assure that at least from a certain point, you've got good protection. For example, the fact that you identify that cybersecurity is a topic that you need to take care of, so it must be a policy thing. Your organization must identify it and create a policy around it. That policy is not just a paper you write and put somewhere, but should be something that is signed up to by the senior leadership of that organization. Now, that policy will then drive other activities. Or, for example, we should have a senior officer responsible for making sure that these recommendations are in place. Okay, we have systems. Do we make sure that they are kept up to date? Are we carrying out risk assessments from time to time to ascertain whether we have exposures in certain areas and take proactive action? Do we even do, if you are involved in creating software, for example, the code that you've created for the Ghanaian environment, are you able to put that code somewhere? We call it an escrow. So if something happens to the guy who built the software for you and you need to improve the software or to recover, you have access to it. So the directive helps to sort of align all these stakeholders into that. Now, if you build on top of the CII mechanism, we also are looking at it from the point of incident handling. If something happens at a major teaching hospital, are we able to pick up that incident and help them to recover? And are we able to then pick out lessons that can be propagated to other health institutions?
Not a recurrence of that same situation.
It's not a recurrence. Or can you even tell other sectors? Because some attacks cut across. I think over the weekend we were learning about the US. Someone attacked an entity that looks after their health records, analytics. They call it the United Health Group. Now, the attack was that severe that now payments in hospitals, so if assuming you took your insurance card, you couldn't pay, your records were in a mess, so they shut it down. And the losses were, when they computed, for some entities, was like $100 million a day. That's how bad it was.
Wow.
Now, Transpose that to Ghana. Let's say in theory something happens between NIA and maybe some entities or within the banks. That's a complete shutdown of the ecosystem. So it's really important for us to take such things into account, handling incidents. And so what we've done is in some of these sectors, health, telecoms, banking and finance, we also have what we call incident response teams. So these guys look after that sector. So in the health sector, we are building that up. It's not fully deployed yet, but what would then happen is if something happens at a major teaching hospital, they'll report that incident into that team. That team will help them to recover.
Right.
But then that team is also plugged into the national set, which I look after. And our mandate there is to make sure that we coordinate the response and then make sure that the dissemination in terms of information, what happened here, what was exploited to make the attack possible. Let's make sure all the other sectors also know about. And so these are some of the building blocks we've got in place to make sure that the ecosystem is protected.
Those are